You're earning more than you ever have, more than you made 5 years ago, more than you thought you'd be making by now. The number, when you actually look at it, is fine. It's more than fine. By any reasonable measure, you're doing okay. And yet, there's still a tightness that follows you around, a low-level anxiety that doesn't really go away, a quiet voice in the back of your head that says you're one bad month from things getting complicated. You check your account, it's not empty, but it never feels like enough. You got a raise last year. You don't really feel it. You spend less than some of your friends, but you feel more stressed than they look. And nobody seems to be talking about this. Nobody's explaining why the financial anxiety you expected to shrink as your income grew didn't. So you assume something is wrong with you, that you're bad with money, that you're not disciplined enough, that somehow other people figured out a thing you missed. But here's what's actually happening. It's not about your income. It's not about your willpower. And it is definitely not about you being bad with money. It's about something much quieter. And once you see it, you can't unsee it. Let's start with something called lifestyle expansion. It doesn't feel like a decision. That's what makes it invisible. When your income goes up, your life quietly upgrades around it. The apartment gets slightly nicer, the car gets slightly newer. You start eating out a little more, shopping somewhere slightly better, taking trips you wouldn't have taken before. None of it feels extravagant. None of it feels reckless. It all just feels like a natural progression, like you're simply living at a level that matches where you are now. And that's exactly the problem. Because every time your income rises and your lifestyle rises with it, you end up in the same place you started. More money coming in. But the same margin, the same tightness, the same feeling that there's never quite enough left over. Most people go through their entire working lives inside this pattern and never name it. They just keep thinking the next raise will fix it, the next job, the next level. And it never does, because the lifestyle keeps expanding to absorb whatever extra arrives. This isn't a moral failure. It's just what happens when nobody tells you to watch for it. Now, add something else on top of that. Your comparison point didn't stay fixed. It moved with you, and then past you. When you were making less, your reference point was people at your level. The friends in similar apartments, driving similar cars, eating at similar places. You knew where you stood. But as your income grew, so did your circle. The neighborhood changed. The social context changed. The things you see advertised to you changed. And quietly, without you deciding it, the definition of normal shifted. You're no longer measuring yourself against where you started. You're measuring yourself against where you are now, and against people around you who might be further along, earning more, or simply better at looking like they are. And here's what that does to your brain. Even if your situation improved significantly, if the people around you improved at the same rate or faster, you feel exactly as behind as you did before. Sometimes more so. The research on this is consistent and a little uncomfortable. Human beings are remarkably bad at measuring their financial situation in absolute terms. We measure it in relative terms, almost automatically, against our neighbors, against our peers, against what we see every day. And in a world designed to constantly show you people doing better than you, on every screen, in every scroll, that comparison is happening all the time, whether you consent to it or not. But there's a third layer, and this one runs the deepest. Your brain was not built to feel financially secure. That's not an insult. It's just an accurate description of how human psychology works. We are wired to scan for threats, to notice gaps, to feel the pull toward more, not because we're greedy, but because for most of human history, not having enough was a genuine survival problem. The people who stayed anxious about resources were the people who survived. That wiring doesn't update when your salary does. A raise doesn't send a signal to your nervous system that says, you can relax now, you're safe, you have enough. Instead, your nervous system recalibrates to the new normal within a few months, and then returns to scanning for the next gap, for the next thing that could go wrong, for the next reason the floor might drop. This is why people who grew up with very little often carry financial anxiety long after they've built genuine stability. And it's why people who have never struggled still sometimes lie awake at 3 in the morning, convinced they're one decision away from everything falling apart. The anxiety is not evidence of the problem. The anxiety is the system doing what it was designed to do. The problem is that nobody teaches you how to work with that system, instead of just feeling punished by it. So let's name what's actually happening when you feel poor, even though you're not. Your income went up. Your lifestyle followed it. Your comparison point stretched past you, and your brain, doing exactly what brains do, kept generating the same low-level signal. Not enough, not safe, not there yet. The feeling is real. The feeling makes sense given those conditions, but the feeling is not an accurate report on your actual financial situation. And that gap between how you're actually doing and how you feel like you're doing is something you can close. Not by earning more, not by cutting everything, by doing something much simpler. The first thing is to stop measuring by feeling and start measuring by fact. Most people have only a vague sense of their actual financial picture. They know roughly what they earn. They know when the account feels low. But they don't have a clear, calm, honest picture of where they actually stand. And in the absence of clear information, the brain fills the gap with anxiety. So get the clear information. Not to judge yourself, just to see it. What comes in? What goes out? What's sitting somewhere doing something? What you actually own versus what you actually owe. When you have that picture, a real one, not a feeling, a lot of the ambient financial anxiety starts to quiet down. Not all of it, but enough that you can think clearly. The second thing is to define what enough looks like for now. Not forever, just for this season. Most people never do this. They chase a moving target without ever deciding what they're actually aiming for. More always sounds better. Enough always feels abstract. But if you sit down and actually define what financial stability would look like for you right now, a specific number in a specific account, a specific buffer, a specific threshold, you give your brain something to actually measure against. And when you hit it, something shifts. Not permanently, but noticeably. Because for a moment, you're measuring yourself against a target you set, not against everything you don't have yet. The third thing is to build a buffer before you build anything else. Not an investment portfolio, not a retirement account, not a vacation fund, a buffer. A plain, boring, accessible pile of money that exists for no other reason than to make unexpected things less catastrophic. Most financial anxiety isn't really about wealth. It's about fragility. It's the feeling that one car repair, one medical bill, one slow month could unravel everything. A buffer doesn't fix your income. It doesn't eliminate the comparison trap. It doesn't rewire your nervous system. But it removes the specific fear that lives closest to the surface, the one that says, if something goes wrong, I have nothing. Even a small buffer changes the emotional experience of your financial life more than a lot of people expect. Here's what none of this is about. It's not about convincing yourself that you have enough when you don't. It's not about pretending the comparison trap doesn't exist. It's not about toxic positivity or thinking your way out of a real financial problem. If your income genuinely doesn't cover your expenses, that's a real problem that requires a real solution. This isn't that conversation. This is the conversation for the people who are doing okay. Objectively, actually, measurably okay. And still walking around feeling like they're failing. And if that's you, the thing I want you to hear is this. The feeling is not proof that you're behind. The feeling is proof that you're human. And the difference between people who spend their whole lives chasing a finish line that keeps moving and people who eventually find something that feels like peace with money isn't income. It's clarity. Clarity about what's actually happening. Clarity about what they're actually trying to build. Clarity about what enough looks like, even temporarily, so they have something real to measure against instead of a feeling that never seems to arrive. You didn't feel poor because you're failing. You felt poor because nobody showed you how to look at this clearly. Now you can start.